Hi, good morning. It's Jo here at Woolly Cottage. Okay, so it's nippy outside, it's bitter. So a lot of you, I've got to take my glasses off because I've got a glare off the light and I always look a little bit odd. I've only been wearing glasses for 18 months, 2 years, and now I've got, gotta look weird without them. Okay, so a lot of people got blending boards for Christmas this year. And I have seen a couple of people doing showing off the blended boards, which is brilliant. It's nice to see people being creative. But there's been some video clips I've seen where people are dragging the fibre off in a really weird way off their blending board, or not layering the fibres in a way that's going to be really good and more productive to you without destroying the fibres that are on there. Because believe it or not, there is a correct way and a wrong way to actually do blending boards, just like there is when you're doing your drum carding. I mean, there's nothing stopping you from using different types of fibres all the time. There's no rule that says that you have to use or blend all the same fibre all the time and not mix media, because you might find there's wool fibres out there that you really, really like, but you want to add in a softness. So like a Shetland. Now a Shetland can be quite soft, but then for some people it'd be quite harsh on the skin, which, to be fair, wools like Shetlands and Cheviots and Dorsets, I always call them my outer garments. Those are the jumpers that you want to wear over the top of a shirt, or layers, or a thermal vest or something like that, for when you're out in the garden, out for a walk, because you can take your anorak off and then just tie it around your waist, but you've got a jumper to keep you warmer. And trap all that air and everything else to keep your skin warm with the friction of the air that's trapped inside the wool. But there's nothing to say that you cannot mix a BFL with there if you like the feel of that, to give it a little bit more softer feel. Or if you don't want a really thick a really thick wool like an Aran wool or a worsted wool, by spinning 50-50 of that and a finer wool like a merino or something like that, you're going to bring down the thickness of the yarn, if you get my drift. And when it comes to blending your fibres as well on your drum carder or on your board, your blending board, the thickness, the coarseness of the fibre, the less fibre you'll get on your board. The finer the fibre, the more you'll get on your board, but that's where you have to be careful. Now, on my blending board, I do have quite long tines. Some people don't, some people have the shorter ones. I think I've got 72s, and they're the long ones, or at least a decent mid-length. They're at least a centimetre and a bit long. So I generally make sure that I have, I would say about 40 to 45 grams of fibre I can put on my blending board without me overpacking it. Again, depending on what type of fibres I'm using. So what I thought we'd do, I've had a couple of people message me as well, asking me, Jo, is there any chance, dropping me comments in below. You can do a blending board. Now I did the Diz one, that was on request last time, and I'm quite happy, I'll do that again later on down the line for the content. But I've had requests, how do you take it, how can you make a mini bat off your blending board and take it off without it all falling apart? Well, generally you just want to roll it as one gigantic Rolag, or one gigantic Rolag or a roll log, and then just unravel it, and then you will get yourself a mini bat. So I'll do a demonstration of that, and I'll also do a demonstration of how to layer your fibres so that your things like your silks and that will not get trapped on the base layer, and then how to clean your board as well, because it's really, really important, because the boards do get a little bit grotty after time. I mean, I've had this one 3.5 years now. I made mine from a carding cloth that I got from Wing and Will. You can get them from other companies as well, smaller companies there, and I have got it on a £10 IKEA chopping board, and it's got a couple of nails in it, it's got staples to keep it in place. It's not perfect, but I tell you what, this is the gadget that got me started on my Etsy shop. I used to do packs of, I think it was 4 Rolags and a bat, and I'd end up with about, I don't know, about 120 grams, 150 grams give or take. And that's what I started selling on my shop from using my blending board until I could save up enough, pardon me, save up enough to get a drum card, which can be, I mean, they're not cheap. I mean, they're not overly expensive, but they're about the same. You're looking at the same price as a decent spinning wheel. And then the other thing with Rolags as well, if you've never used them before, there's a certain way that you want to spin them as well. And once we've done this, we'll pop downstairs and I'll show you what I mean, because you just have to look at the way that the fibres are spiralling around to be able to understand which way you need to spin and turn your Rolag at the same time, just so it doesn't end up with like you've got a little thin bit and you're starting off really nice and all of a sudden it turns out and you've got fibre bath all over the place. So let's get on with this, shall we? Now, I can't still set my camera to get you up, so I'm going to turn you around so you can see what I'm doing from the other side. Because my blending board, you want to make sure that, so the tines, right, that's it. Get your card out. Now, you do not need a gigantic paddle, okay? You don't need a giant carding paddle at all. Mine's is from Wing and Will, but after the fact, I actually realised that it's just a dog brush. Okay, it's just a dog paddle brush, that's all. You can find them in your local cheap pan shops, budget shops or whatever, and it's just got the tines on it. Now, can you see how the tines go down and the angle like that? Okay, you want your tines to push back on themselves down the board. So I'm going to see if I can sort this out and twist you around so you can see what it is that I'm doing. But I'll just point you down here. So my tines on my board here, okay, you can't see, yeah, are facing just ever so gently in the same direction as my carding tines, okay? They're going the opposite, they're going straight down. So if I put my brush like this, which is what I usually do, I'm sure I do it like that, yeah, because you feel more pressure. So I usually do it going down in the opposite direction. So now my tines are pointing that way. These tines on the board are pointing that direction. And I can actually get my fibres pushed down. Some people use paint brushes. I've tried that and I just don't feel it. I don't get it at all. I can't do it. Other thing, when cleaning my board, especially if you've got neps in your fibres and you want to sort of experiment a little bit and make a textured Rolag, I use one of these. Now, it was actually a fibre friend of mine, Sadie Spincraft, who I saw on one of her videos, like, oh, where'd you get that from? And it's actually a brush cleaner, as in a hairbrush. So it's got these little picky bits. It looks like a miniature rake. And I use this gadget for cleaning my boards and my drum carder. Okay, and it just helps get all these little nippy bits out of the fibres, all the little silky bits and Angelina that might be trapped right down the bottom of the board. So it is real, as far as I'm concerned, maybe it's coming from a chefing background, but to keep your working tools clean and as prepared, so that if you clean up after yourself on your blending board and on your drum carder, it means when you go to use it, you're not spending the first 5 minutes of your time cleaning the equipment up before you get going. Okay. Okay, so as I said about the tines, mine's are going in that direction. My board is facing that way. I want my tines to be pointing in the opposite direction to the way I'm going to be dragging, because they will actually keep a hold of your fibres. Now, there's some out there that have got this, I think it's the Ashford stands, and I think Louis are the same as well, the blending boards, and it's got like a leg in the back of the board. That bit is actually designed so you can sit with it, the actual prop bit at the back in between your legs, so you can sit there and blend while you're watching TV or whatever. You can do it standing upright, but I find it easier personally. Maybe it's because mine is laying flat anyway, but I find mine easier to actually work with laid down. Okay, now the tines are going in that direction. Those ones are going in that direction. If I put that in there, I'm not going to get that going anywhere. That's stuck. So go in the opposite direction to each other and your brush will go down without any problem whatsoever. You can use hair brushes where you want it, that you can just brush straight down, because the teeth on a hairbrush are just straight up and down, so you wouldn't have no problem and no frictions with that. And use a nylon one if that's the case. But yeah, so that is what you need to do. You need to remember, so you're coming down on yourself. So I've got some wheels here. So I usually use size 12 chunky knit needles, and can I find them anywhere? Can I heck? So I've just looked out some doweling rods. Now I'll not be able to use my entire board, but I'm just going to do a quick demonstration of how to take off the fibre from there so you can create yourself a bat like that, which I've just done myself on my board, and this is just from a recycled bat. Okay, so I'm just going to firstly put my first layer down, and as I say, I'm just going to use this middle section of the board, and you want to either move your hands with it, you want to hold the end of your fibre, okay, and you don't want your fibres dropping over the top of this end of the board, because you'll end up with just so much wastage, and it gets a little bit matted by the time you get to this end of the board when you're rolling up. So you can either pat it down with your hand and just drag at the same time, use the palm of your hand and just pull, and make sure you're pulling down. You don't want to pull like that, because what you'll end up with is really light and you're not getting no pressure in there. You want to pull the fibres down so your thumb is running along the edge. You will scratch your knuckles now and again, but do you know what? It's worth it. So that's my first layer. I want to add some of this merino mulberry silk in there as well, so I'm just going to add that in now. Now the reason I'm adding my silk in after the fact of the first layer is because it's such a slippery fibre. If I was to put that straight on my blending board, and I will show you now, if I was to put that straight on my blending board and then get my brush and push it down, when it comes to later on and pulling it, I'm going to end up with quite a lot of fibre left behind in the board. I know it sounds a little bit pedantic, but it's just me. It's just the way I do it. And to be fair, it really doesn't make no difference whether I was to put it on first or put it on my second layer. As in, like, look wise, you can still see it still comes out and shines out and pops out afterwards anyway. So I'm just going to brush that down, and then I'm going to come in with a bit of this old bat, and I'm going to take the layers off, and I'm going to do it a bit at a time. So I'm going to again pat that down, and I want to catch those tines at the end here. Oh, a bit more there. Push that down, push that down and down. Now, if you've got a couple of bats at home and you want to make your life a little bit easier, just strip them apart, make new ones out of the colours that are in there, or just literally strip off a section and break it down to its smallest piece like you would do if you were drafting, and then just make yourself little mini Rolags from that one piece. So I've got this lovely multicoloured merino here, and I'm just going to blend that down there and cover the whole of this. I'm going to add in some neps in a minute, a bit more. Okay, I'm going to add in a bit of neps. So I've got these lovely little cotton scraps, and I'm just going to cover them in on top of my fibres. Card that in. Okay, and I've got some mulberry silk oil here. I want a little bit of that in there just for a little bit of extra softness. But these are all the fluffy bits that I put in after I've done my layers. They do come out on the Rolag or on the bat. You're not making any difference to what your bat's going to look like. What you're doing is helping yourself when it comes to getting on with work, and trapping all these little bits that are not going to pop out everywhere anyway. Right, I want a little bit more of this bat here. Just going to take a piece off because it's just easier to work with if I do it in smaller sections. So I use scales. Generally I can get about on the full length of this board, I can usually get about I would say 35 to 40 grams of fibre on my blending board, which gives me approximately 10 to 15 grams in a Rolag or a puni depending on the fibres I'm using, if you're using a coarser fibre, then I'll probably only get about 35 to 40 grams on my blending board with all the different bits put in between. But then I'll also end up with, oh well, I've lost my train of thought there. So yeah, depending on the types of fibres that I'm adding into it, but that's generally what I end up with. And I can get 3, maybe 4, well, say 4, but sometimes you just want 3 because maybe you just don't, you want less bats to, Rolags to put in. So I've just taken, there's got little bits of grass in that. So I was adding some Surrey alpaca that I've dyed up out of my stash. But yeah, I can generally get 4 off of these, depending on how much fibres I'm putting onto the board. Then I'm talking about 10-15 grams each Rolag. If you want 15 gram Rolags, then just blend off 4 of them. That's it, simple. So I'm just going to push that all the way down there again. So work from the top, okay, and down. And you can, nothing to say you can't pack in between the little gaps in between, but you have to remember to come down. Don't go up. I'll show you in a minute what I mean. Right, so there. Quickly, there is your bat. It's all carded in there nicely and firmly. Now you do not want to drag on this like you would do if you're making a Rolag. This is just a bat that you've blended together, and you literally twist your, so get your needles or your dowels, put one underneath, one on the bottom, on the top, and then just gently roll it, and that up against the direction that you were blending down. So you're going back up on yourself, up to the top of the board. There's that silky bit now grabbing, and then right off the end, and there you have one mini bat. Okay, it's held its form. I can push that, roll that over. I can draft it out a little bit. I mean, how pretty is that? And then there we go, one probably about 20 gram mini bat. That's it. That's all you do. Don't be doing no dragging. There's no need. You literally just wedge your dowels or your knitting needles or your drumsticks or whatever you're using, and then just gently roll it up. Don't drag it like you would, and that's probably why it's falling apart, or not. You end up with barf like that, because you can't get it to undo itself. You've pulled it too close together. But that is just one little mini bat straight off the board. How simple is that? Lovely and loose. You can easily spin from that, or spin if you want to roll up a little bit more. You could spin from that and get going. Or if you're felting, you've created yourself a little background that you can actually wet felt from, or use to do wet felted bowls. You can do all that sort of doing it like this, and doing wet felting projects as well as spinning projects. It just cuts down your time of having to layer your fibres around your what's the word I'm looking for? Your insert for moulding your vessel or whatever it is you're doing, or for doing your wet felted mittens, like I showed a demonstration of them over Christmas on the Advents, and that was a Christmas Day video. So yeah, there you go, one little mini bat blended on your board, easy done, no pressure on it. Don't roll it and drag it to bring your fibres to look all shiny. Just gently roll it off at the end, and it should stay in one full form. Okay, so that was simple enough to do, wasn't it? Yeah. Right, so next one is blending what not to do and what you should be doing to get the full potential out your blending board. Okay, so there is when you're blending, as you've just seen me doing, you want to do from top to bottom, okay? It doesn't matter whether you're inspired by a picture for colour blending or anything like that. You've got to think of the picture back to front, okay? You've got to think of, right, what's the colours I see on the top? I'm going over complicated with this. Okay, so the next bit is the do's and don'ts of blending. Okay, you know who you are. Bless you, cotton socks. Right, you want to blend and layer from the top going down. You've just seen me do it on the small bat, okay? You do not want to build up your layers from the bottom going up, nor do you want to, and I'll say this again, you do not want to put any type of fabric on your blending board and then build up your layers on the top of it. By making that little mini bat, you can needle felt from that straight away. You can wet felt from that straight away, okay? You do not want to put a and adhere that to a fabric mesh or whatever it is that you want to felt to that. You do not want to put a mesh netting or some sort of cotton scrim on your blending board. No, you don't want to do that, because you're going to ruin your blending board, and really what you're doing is defeating the object of what it is you're trying to create. It's not, you're not going to be able, it's just going to ruin the tines, it's going to pull it all apart, and you've just probably spent the best part of what, 120 quid from some companies for the blending boards, and you're not going to get the use out of it at all. Just make your mini bat up, roll it off gently, place it onto the fabric that you want to felt it to, whether it be a cotton scrim, a silk, a netting, or a fabric, a pre-felted fabric, and then layer that on top of that, then needle felt that into place. Please, please, please don't put fabric onto your blending board. Anyway, what you want to do, or what you don't want to do, and I'll just point you down now, get you back down there. I'm trying to get you angled so you can actually see what I'm doing, guys. Okay. What you don't want to do is start from here and then go up that is a no-no, because you're not doing anything. It's not doing anything. You're not trapping the fibres in there. You've ended up with loose fibres, and that's just, it's no good. If you're doing it, you're building up from the bottom up, all you're doing is creating a fluff, okay? None of that is actually stuck in there at all. So when you go to pull that off with your needles, it's not going to hold on to anything. It's just going to fall apart in your hands, okay? I'm only saying this because I want you to have the best out of the equipment that you've got. I want you to be able to feel joy in what you're creating and not get frustrated because you're not quite sure if you're doing it right. Just ask. Honestly, we would rather you just ask us, is this the best way to do it? I know there's people out there that are in my industry that will not give out anything. Fine, that's up to them. That's their prerogative. I would rather you just message me and say, Joe, do you have any videos, or could you do this for me? I really need to know how to do it. I would rather you do that than ruin what you've got. So I've got some hand-dyed roving here. Okay, so I'm just going to pull that apart, make sure it's opened up, the fibres. It's actually some 18 count merino that I've got here. What else have I got? Oh, I've got a little bit of this gorgeous midnight blue sari silk. So I'm going to use some of this blue, okay, and I'm going to start blending down, and I'm going to make some little mini Rolags. Well, these are going to be punis because my needles have gone walkabout, so I don't know what I've done with them. Oh dear. They're going to be around here somewhere. So that's me just done a base layer of that. Now I'm going to add in this absolutely gorgeous bright midnight blue sari silk on there. And just drag it all the way down. And then I'm going to add in a little bit of this mulberry silk. I just think it's absolutely gorgeous. It's a lovely little peppermint. I mean, I can place that anywhere I want to on my board, but I need to make sure that I'm working my way down. Okay, and then pull your fingers down, and I'm going to put a little bit up the top here, because when I come to the top of my Rolag, I don't want to miss out on the colours that I could have potentially had. Right, what have I done with my card? There it is. I get my carder and just gently brush down. I'm going to add some of this purple in, because it's actually got teal in there as well, and purples and blues look really good together. That bit of warmth and different tonal effects. I'm going to use up some of this one that I've just used on the bottom to show you how you shouldn't do it. Okay. Take that off because it's not in there. Take this piece off as well. Put that in. Card down. Okay. Use some of this merino that I've put in there. Build up my layers. I can put a bit more in. You could get technical and go looking for images that you like the look of. It's something I'll delve into another time once everyone's got the basics of what they're doing under their belts, and they feel a lot more confident in their blending skills. But you can get an image and be able to translate that onto your board. It takes a bit more thought, and you have to look at the picture from a different perspective. You have to look at it backwards, as in the colour layers, to be able to translate it into the same colours that you would see on your Rolags. It's a bit like what I do with my blending board with my drum carder, but you're doing it by hand. It's like painting. That's exactly what it feels like. It feels like painting. So I've got this lovely corn blue. I'm just going to have a piece of this. Add that in there. May have ended up with a bit of a clump there, but I can take that off in a minute. Okay, you don't want lumps of fibre. Yeah, it's not even got in. There we go. I think we're nearly done. I think I might add in some neps. I'm going to run my card down and see what space I've got left. Right, I'm going to add in some neps. I've got these lovely blues and terracotta colour nappies in here. I'm going to take them out. I just add a little dash in, especially in the areas where I've got quite a lot of needles still showing. Leave that like that, and then I'm going to add in the last of this purple, just to make sure that my neps stay in place. Not that it makes no difference, because it doesn't, but I just want to. I just want a bit more of this purple to pop through when I'm creating my Rolags. So remember, you want to use your hands and drag your fibres all the way down, so that your fingers are skimming the tips of those tines. So I think that's just about as packed as I'm happy with. I'm just going to move this out of my way. Tidy up as you go along, Joe. Yeah, I know. Anyway, next. Oh. Just lift it up ever so slightly at the bottom of your blending board. Put your dowel or your knitting needles or your drumsticks or whatever it is that you're using, and then cross them over so they lie like that, okay? And you just want to ever so gently tease your fibres off the board and drag back. Now you want to drag back so it's actually brushing with the tines on the bottom, so you're sort of dragging down. Okay, see how all those fibres starting to shine through already, and just drag down and drag down like that. So there's one, so I'm just going to gently tease those fibres back. There you go. Okay, just gently twist it round, take one dowel out, take your other dowel out, and there you have the most prettiest little Rolag. All those little, oh, trying to show you, but it's, there we go. The greens, and there's pops of purple in there as well. So you've got some fibres left over the edge here. Do the exact same thing again. Sandwich them together, lift up your fibres a little bit so you can sandwich your dowels together. Turn them over, lie it flat, lift it a little bit and drag along the teeth. A little bit at a time until you can feel that you're grabbing all the fibres. Right, that'll do for that one. And just lift it up a little bit so that you've got your fibres left there to come back to in a minute. And they see the little neps are starting to come through now. Okay. So just give them a bit of a wiggle if they feel a bit stiff. One should come out easier than the other, she says. There we go. Oh. And then take that one off. So make sure your fibres are loose on this end where you want to drag them through. One underneath, one on the top. Sandwich them together. Just give that a little yank and then pull along your board. Can you hear it scratching? Okay. You don't want to drag it too much or too tight because it will, your sticks and your needles will get stuck in your fibres. There you go. And that is how to use your blending board properly to get the most gorgeous little item. Hold on, give it a wiggle. See, I'm not used to using these. I'm used to using my knitting needles, and you know, I'll find them sometime this year. Oh, it will come off. Oh, dear me. There we go. Oh, rolled a little bit too tight. There we go. So I've ended up with 3 ponies. Okay? Okay, so if you're new to spinning, and you're new to making your own blending Rolags and punies and things like that, there is a way, because you can end up with a load of barf at the end of it if you spin it in the wrong direction and you twist it and it comes around and it just keeps on going and you end up with these really big thick bits. I learned the hard way. We've all done it. Okay, now you've just rolled it. You've pulled it off the blending board. Where's my ends? I'm just trying to see where my ends is so that it curls around that way. So I have just took it off the blending board and I've rolled it in a anti-clockwise direction. Okay, you think about it, because it's going backwards on itself, right? So it's anti-clockwise. So when I'm unraveling my ends, I want to spin it and draft it out in a clockwise direction. So in other words, I'm turning the Rolag. So as I pull and draft out, I turn this way so the fibres all come out really quite thinly. Okay, if I was to turn this in a anti-clockwise direction, it just gets thicker and thicker and thicker. So I'm wanting to turn it in an anti-clockwise direction, well, in a clockwise direction, because the fibres are going anti-clockwise. So I'm just going to quickly get this on thinking I won't spend too much time because I do have an announcement I want to make, which if you never caught my live chat on Saturday, there was a chat that we did a couple months ago before Christmas, when I was asked about my weaving and alternative things to making instead weaving and hand spinning, alternative things to scarves and dishcloths and table runners. What else can you make? So that's what I'm coming up to next. It's a bit of an announcement. It's my new project for this year, and I'll tell you a bit more about that in a minute. So I'm just going to tilt you down so you can see me spinning this puni. So I'm going to, on a sec white, I'm a stiff, there we go. I'm going to spin this, just tighten up a little bit, in a anti-clockwise direction on my wheel, because I like to do this. On a minute, I need to tighten this up a little. There we go. I'm just waiting for this to pull it in. No, do you know, it's always the same when I'm doing a demo, my blinking leader always plays up. Right, why isn't that catching? Oh. Okay, there we go. I had to turn you off for a minute. It was so embarrassing. Right, so I'm turning my Rolag, my puni, in a clockwise direction to get a really lovely thin thread from that. And it gives you a little bit more control over how thin you can do it. Right, and I will just show you in a second. I'm sure I've done a Rolag spin before. Maybe not. So I'm going to twist that around while my hand's pinched onto the fibres. And twist it around again. And the fibres come out so nicely. Like that. And you can potentially use your little Rolags when you drop spindling on your kick spindle, your Turkish spindle, because they're a nice little size to work with and draft out beforehand, just a little bit, as long as you remember to just always turn it in a clockwise direction. And you can get these fibres really, really thin. Here's my net's now catching on. Little thicky thin bits in there, and sometimes I find that when I'm using textures in these, it does seem to catch on to those woolly bits a little bit better than they do if I was spinning from a bat. Now look what happens if I twist my wool round in the wrong direction. So I'm going to twist this now as I'm spinning in a anti-clockwise direction, and look how thick that's got. There's no finesse to it at all. It's thick, it's thin, it's lumpy, and it's just coming out in larger sections. It's thick and thin. It's not perfect, and I'm using up a hell of a lot more fibre than I am if I'm spinning it, turning it around. See, I'm still doing it anti-clockwise, so it's dragging out the top layers as well as the middle layers, and there's more coming, and I just have no control over that fibre. Now if I start spinning it again in the proper way and draft out clockwise and twist it around, there I go back to being nice and thin again. Okay, so just remember when you're going to start your prep on your little punis, your Rolags, your Rologs, that you know what direction your fiber's going in, and you want to spin in the opposite, or draft out, spin from the opposite direction. So generally you're looking at, you want to spin it in a clockwise direction. I don't know of anybody that has to spin it in an anti-clockwise direction. I think I would say all the boards and tines on them are pretty standard. But there we go, I have a lot more control over how thin I want it, because it's drafting out from the centre and not the centre more than it is everywhere else. because I can feel the fibres pulling from the middle of my hand. There we go. Twist it around as I'm spinning. Just part of my drafting technique. And keep going. I'm starting to get to that section where I was proper yanking it at the bottom now. So it's having a bit of fight with me. It's like, no, I don't want to go thick, thin. I want to pull whatever I want to, but that's because you saw me mess around with that bottom bit earlier on. So it's just pulled all my threads and fibres out of line, out of kilter. But I'm continuing just to gently twist my hand around clockwise till I get to the end. There we go, nearly there. That'll do. So that's it. So there it is on there. It's not perfect, it's just a demonstration. I want you to see the different effects, the different aspects from spinning in the right direction on your Rolags. So I'm trying to see, you can see, can you see in there? I think that light's a bit too bright for me to show you. Right, okay, there we go. So those fibres are curled around inside, and I can see that my fibres are going anti-clockwise on that spin. This side as well is going around like that, and you can just make it out at the ends what direction, because if I was to pull that, there you go, pull that, and I'd be going around and around and around to get that off. So it's just a matter of figuring out if you've got it going the right way round, and then pull from the centre and then start drafting and turning out in a clockwise direction, and you will quite easily get a lovely fine fibre. And as I say, these are great for doing if you're a beginner spinner. You can get people that are suppliers out there in that do Rolags packs. I do Rolags, and I'm quite happy to turn a art bat into Rolags for you if that's what you want. Just let me know in the messages that you're a beginner spinner and you want to do Rolags, you feel comfortable with them, and you're using a drop spindle. I'm quite happy to do that for you, or do custom blends. It's something I don't do or sell on my website that often. I think I just fell out the habit of doing it more than anything. Anyway, quickly before this video ends up too long, right, conversation that was come up in topic before Christmas on one of my live chats. You can see the video on in my bio on my Instagram account. I was asked if there's any alternatives to spinning up your own yarn, to weaving it, and not just making scarves and shawls and tablecloths and dishcloths and this, that and the other. And I said, and I've always said, go and buy yourself a garment pattern. Now, there is a designer out there that creates patterns. She's got a shop on Etsy. The lady's called Sarah Howard, and her shop's called Get Weaving with Sarah. You'll find her on Instagram. You can find her on Facebook. She shows off her new patterns. She only pulls out a couple of patterns every year because they do take a long time to get going, because she has to actually create the item first to be able to then draft out a pattern to then be able to get it going. As in a norm, and then making the adjustments that she needs to make to those patterns to then see if it actually works in principle, and then she can put it on her shop. Now, she's got everything from dungarees, pinafores, jackets, different styles of jackets, trousers I've seen her doing on there, dresses, skirts, tops, shorts, So yeah, there's a variety, a long coat as well, which I was so tempted to order. Now they range, I think, from about £13-14 a pattern to, I think, about £17, I think, was the most expensive, or maybe £18, the most expensive one I saw on there yesterday. But that comes down to the paper that it takes to create, especially the long coat. I think that was about 18 quid for the pattern, because the amount of work that goes into creating that pattern itself. Anyway, I reached out to Sarah, and I've been meaning to do this for ages, and I asked if she minded if I was to do a spin weave to garment along. I thought of this last night. So it's swag. So it's a spin, weave and garment. So a swag along we're going to be doing. And I will do actually hashtag swag Willy Cottage, or Willy Cottage swag on Instagram when we get started on this. And I'm going to start doing this around about February, March. I'm going to start spinning up my wools. I've got to think about the colours that I want to use for it as well. But I'll be filming everything on my YouTube channel. I'm going to see about how I can go live on my YouTube and do it like a bit like a Zoom, where we can sit and chat to each other and bounce some ideas around and that sort of thing. Now, it doesn't have to just be wools. If you're not doing hand spinning, I'm doing spinning because I made my dungaree dress from hand spun wool, and that was from my warp and my weft. And I cut out the pattern and everything else. And I did this all about two and a bit years ago, 2 years ago, just before COVID it was anyway. And it was a Facebook group that I was following, and it didn't seem to go on that well, but we all tried, and I got mine done. And I was quite happy with the way it came out. So Sarah, as I say, has said, yeah, she doesn't mind if I use her patterns and send you along, and I will drop in the link to her Instagram account and how to find her. I'll go and see if I can find her link to her shop, but you'll find that on her Instagram account anyway, link in the bio to her shop, if you want to do what I'm doing and follow along. And this is partly why I did my book review last week, because remember the book about colour inspirations for weaving? That's where my brain was going, because I was hoping that Sarah would reach out to me and we could go from there. I was going to do this anyway, but I wanted to use one of Sarah's patterns, and I wanted to make sure that she was quite happy for me to do this. And if I needed to reach out, then she'd be there for me if needed. Or any questions you guys want to ask me that I may not have the answer to, then I can reach out to Sarah and ask her for her advice. But is this something that we can all do, that we can learn from, and then we can maybe explore into creating cloth that we can make bags from next year, like rucksacks? There's a couple of bag patterns that I've got that I would love to be able to make with my own wool fibres. But you can use all sorts. You can use textured yarns in these weaves. Sarah, I've seen Sarah do that on her Facebook pages, where she's not just used wools and hand dyed fibre yarns and stuff. She's used ribbons and textures and all sorts to give different types of effects in her cloth. Oh, I do apologise for my dog. The postman's just been. Sorry, I am waiting for something. I'm waiting for my stitch markers to turn up for my body club. Iona, so naughty. I do apologise. Oh dear, she's worse when the printer goes off, believe me. So yes, that's what we're doing. I'm going to start from about the end of February into March. I'll have my Easter bundle sets to get sorted out as well, but I'll be doing my spinning in between that. And then from that point we can talk about how we're going to weave it, what lengths we're going to need, about cutting out the patterns and doing test swatches and things like that. And then the next stages, and we'll go along as we go along. And I'm hoping to put these videos out every 2, maybe every 3 weeks, depending on my workload. And then if you've got any questions, you can just fire them at me, not a problem. Now, I do a discount on my custom orders. So if there's any colours for bats that you want, if you want to spin up and you want to purchase them from me, and I'd be really privileged if you did, then I do a custom order discount. So anything from like 300 to 600 grams of bats or more, depends on what you want it for. I'm quite happy to do more, but I do a discount, and it's usually 10%, the same as my Willie Cottage VIP discount if you subscribe to the website. So you do get that, and because it's over £35, you get free postage as well. So even if you want to send me a really lovely image of a sunset over a French lavender field, or if it's a coastal colours that you're looking for, and you find an image that you absolutely love and it's got all the colours that I can see in there, like of a colour palette like I was talking about a couple of weeks ago, then send me the image and I can work from that and create some art bats from that for you as well. If you don't like art bats, I can dye up lovely blended rovings and sell and sort them out for you as well for the amount that you're looking for. I will be using, I'm not sure if I'm going to have the time to spin up my warp as well. I might use one of my cones of yarn and dye that up for my warp. That's where I'm thinking at the moment. I haven't quite made up my mind. Might do, might not. See how my time goes. So yeah, that's what's happening over the next few months. So I'll be talking about that a bit more on next videos. And any questions that people want to ask me, you can fire them at me on Saturday on my live chat on my Instagram account. So yeah, hopefully, I hope this video is not too long. It's been very talkative. No music in the background. I'll leave that, 'cause I know it's quite distracting for some of you. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video, learned a little bit, learned some new skills. So thank you very much for watching my videos at Willie Cottage. I really do appreciate the support. I am nearly at 100, and I think I'm only about 19 off 1,000 followers on my Instagram account. So I might do a little giveaway when that starts getting to nearly 1,000 and give away one of my bats when I reach 1,000 mark. So yes. Batty Clubs Go are getting dyed up and blended this week. That's closed now for the long quill. Next week it'll be opened up for the next breed, and I'm thinking more along the lines of Norwegian, Finnish or Gotland, because they're very old ancient shapes. Our Manx Lohan are related to them historically wise, like cousins. So I thought something like that, because they're real. I do love spinning those wools. So I was thinking that maybe for next month, but you'll find out in your newsletter that you'll get next week. Please check your spam boxes in case it doesn't drop into your normal inbox, and just let it know that you know who it's from, and then send it back over there. Because I do put out updates every so often, or deals that I've got going on. What else? So yeah, if you love this video, underneath you've got a thumbs up and a thumbs down. Please hit that like. It just helps other people that are looking for help on the YouTube platform to find me. There are a few of us out there that like to share our knowledge, or just show different skills, a way that we approach different techniques, and it just helps people that are just starting out. And if you want to find out more content or have alerts, hit that subscribe button, and you can choose for a bell alert or just to follow along when you go in your subscribe box. So thank you very much for joining me today. You take care of yourself, and I will see you Saturday on Instagram live chat about noonish. Bye.